News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Okay, so the Supreme Court, this is so confusing. But here's the news. The Supreme Court has issued another stay blocking us from implementing our Texas law that would allow us to arrest illegals who come in illegally, not through ports of entry, in between ports of entry, and to take them to the border to deport them, at the official place of deportation there, I would assume at the bridges, where they have to go through legally, and put them on the other side. So what happened is Joe Biden wants this massive invasion of illegals. He doesn't want it to stop. And so he, of course, sued us because he wants to help these illegals flood us even more and more and more. It's his plan. So he filed suit, and that's why it's in the courts. And so it's not saying that our law is going to stop or is not going to stand, but it's just saying we now are going to extend till Monday to allow the lower court, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which tends to rule towards us for sure, but you never know. They're considering whether it's called SB 4, Senate Bill 4, is constitutional. So that's what we have right now on that. In the meantime, this is very scary. I'm going to play for you what our FBI Director Christopher Wray said in a hearing today that actually, as Martha McCallum from Fox News said rightly, is truthfully should have been a more alarming hearing for most people, because he's talking about the fact that you've got the Arab world is extra peeved at us for Gaza and Israel and the war with Hamas. And so the terrorists are coming up through our border, a lot more than we've ever had before. And they're going to do a 9/11 style attack, but probably even better and bigger. And he's already said that all the alarm bells are going off red everywhere, every single place. But he testified today to even more alarming things about illegals flooding our border. And here is that portion. And then guess what else? Europe is experiencing the exact same thing with their illegal migrants.
I don't know that I can speak to the specific gang, but certainly we have had dangerous individuals enter the United States of a variety of sorts.
Are we seeing crimes from people that entered the country over the last 3 years, some of them with ties to gangs or other criminal organizations?
Well, I guess what I would say is this. From an FBI perspective, we are seeing a wide array of very dangerous threats that emanate from the border, and that includes everything from the drug trafficking. The FBI alone seized enough fentanyl in the last 2 years to kill 270 million people. That's just on the fentanyl side. An awful lot of the violent crime in the United States is at the hands of gangs who are themselves involved in the distribution of that fentanyl.
You're also seeing and tracking local law enforcement arresting and for example, the assault on the police officers in New York. All the reporting said they had ties to this gang in particular, but there's no doubt that people that were criminals in their country of origin have crossed that border and are now in the U.S. committing crimes.
Correct.
Is there now a black market emerging to sell? We've seen reports of a black market emerging selling fake Social Security cards, fake green cards. Have you seen reporting on that?
Well, certainly there is on the darknet, for example, there is a significant marketplace for different kinds of stolen identity.
What about in the street?
I think as well. Yeah.
Okay. And there are smuggling networks all over the world that specialize in moving people from all over the world, including from the Middle East, Central Asia, and so forth. Are we aware of any of these smuggling organizations are run by or are conducted by people that have ties, for example, to ISIS or other terrorist organizations?
So I want to be a little bit careful how far I can go in open session, but there is a particular network that has where some of the overseas facilitators of the smuggling network have ISIS ties that we're very concerned about, and that we've been spending an enormous amount of effort with our partners investigating. Exactly what that network is up to is something that's, again, the subject of our current investigation.
But there is a network we're concerned about that has facilitators involved in it that have ties to ISIS and other terrorist organizations.
Correct.
Well, there you go. And we're seeing ISIS coming in. So Joe Biden had he shut down Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan, freeing thousands of terrorists, including the ISIS operative who ended up killing 13 of our soldiers and maiming and forever crippling 38 of our soldiers, or scarring them tremendously. So all of this going on, and we have this threat of terrorism coming through the border at an alarming rate. You heard it right there. But now Europe has the same thing going on. So here we have a new terror threat. This was an exclusive this afternoon in the Wall Street Journal. New terror threat emerging in Europe linked to Iran-Gaza war. You know what I don't get about this? The terrorists attack our friends in Israel. And that made them madder at us? So what they're doing is they're saying, we attacked and killed and raped all these Jews and beheaded them and killed their babies and everything, right? And we're mad at you now, too. So basically they're saying, hold still, stay there, watch our show, and don't do anything, or we're going to be really mad at you and come for you. So there you go. Funny, isn't it? Authorities in Europe from the Wall Street Journal say they've foiled several terror plots from people posing as refugees, raising alarm about growing array of threats from extremists. Growing array. One unreported investigation last December, Austria and Bosnia arrested two suspected separate groups from Afghanistan and Syria refugees who carried arms and ammunition, including Kalashnikov rifles and pistols. Investigators found pictures of Jewish and Israeli targets in Europe on some of the suspects' mobile phones. They suggest they were motivated by Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. This followed the arrest late last year of a group of Tajikistan. They're coming here. I've told you about this. Tajik nationals suspected of planning attacks on the Cologne Cathedral in Germany and St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna around Christmas. Both churches fill with hundreds of visitors for the holiday season. On Monday, Italian authorities say they just detained 3 Palestinians suspected of being members of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, terrorist brigade. We call them terrorists in the U.S. and European Union. They're preparing to attack civilian and military targets in Europe. What's happening here? Do you understand why Chris Wray says every light is flashing red from everywhere? And Joe Biden's letting them flood in. And when we try to stop him and arrest him at our border in Texas, he takes us to court and stops it. He wants the terror attack to happen. He wants to be the one responsible for it, and then he'll turn around and blame it on an orange man. All right, some questions for you at 800-288-WBAP. That's 800-288-9227. Want to hear from you right now. Chime in at 800-288-WBAP. Does this make you fear for terrorists who are coming into our country with Joe Biden's open border policies? His open borders, I should just say. Does this make you fear for terrorists who are coming into our country with Joe Biden's open borders? And do you want this new Texas law that allows us to arrest them and deport them to take effect so that we can start arresting and deporting illegals ourselves? And are you concerned about your kids? We talk about another thing I haven't mentioned yet, xylazine. We're seeing a massive surge of xylazine, which is animal tranquilizers or tranq mixed with fentanyl. And it is now the DEA releasing a public statement today. Xylazine is making the deadliest drug threat to our country has ever faced. Fentanyl, even deadlier. DEA has seized xylazine, again, they're called tranq, which is a veterinary tranquilizers, I guess, or something like that. DEA has seized xylazine in fentanyl mixtures in 48 of 50 states. In 2022, approximately 23% of all fentanyl powder and 7% of all fentanyl pills seized by the DEA contains xylazine. It's coming out from Mexico, from the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco cartel. I'm telling you something. The only conclusion I have here is that Joe Biden wants to destroy our country and kill us. And our enemy, China, is gleefully killing us and causing our society to collapse with a TikTok program, this Chinese malware telling your kids to cut their genitals off, to hate the cops, to hate their country, it's racist, and to destroy the Constitution, to remove all law and disorder, bring in social chaos, and make your kids stupid and think China's just fine. Get your kid to call some of these kids don't even know how to call properly, calling I'm not kidding, they're calling these Senate offices, remember that, and House offices, saying don't get rid of TikTok. The Chinese government orders them to do it, and they do it for them. Free lobbying from stupid kids that are being manipulated, or unsuspecting kids that are malleable, pliable, and basically dumb, unawares. Okay, so does this make you fear for terrorists who are coming over our border with Joe Biden's open borders? Do you want that new Texas law to take effect so we can start arresting and deporting these illegals ourselves? And are you concerned about your kids? How prevalent is this xylazine that you've heard about, tranquilizers mixed with fentanyl? Have your kids heard of anything about this drug as well? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Meanwhile, coming up next, I'm going to tell you about illegals through a Joe Biden executive order perhaps being registered to vote, and felons being registered to vote. I'll tell you that story coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. This is some scary stuff we're going to get into in a minute, some horrifying stuff. What happened in Missouri with just a horrific beatdown of a 15-year-old girl beating down another 15-year-old girl. I'll get to that in a second. And I've got the audio of it and such. Very disturbing and very sickening. But I wanted to also continue on with this discussion with the border and drugs coming across our border, because Joe Biden, scary drugs, xylazine, which is animal tranquilizer mixed with fentanyl. And have you heard about this? Have your kids heard about this? And are you concerned about your kids? It's coming over in record numbers. It's in 48 or 50 states. This is the one where they're walking around like a zombie. Well, fentanyl does that to you too, actually. But they are getting their flesh decayed, and they're losing limbs, and it's just horrifying what people as addicts will do to themselves. But that's what happens. So, and we're finding out that terrorists are attempting attacks, several of them posing as illegal migrants when they're terrorists coming in from Gaza, from Palestinians, and Iran sending them over too. It's just a whole bunch of terrorists trying to blow up churches, Catholic churches in Europe and other areas, all through the illegal migrant flood that's going into Europe that they're allowing. And in ours, we're seeing the same thing. And it's not a matter of if, but when the terror attack on us happens from these illegal migrants coming in, pretending to be just innocuous legal migrants. It's just sickening. And Christopher Wray, our FBI director, as you heard earlier in the last segment, testifying that it's beyond the red alert 4-alarm fire. And what is Joe Biden doing? He is continuing to allow millions of people to flood our country and not doing anything to help from everything we're hearing. In fact, I heard a report on Fox News earlier today that they said they're literally like the head of the CIA, FBI, all of them are begging Joe Biden to stop this invasion. And he's not listening. I think it is because the man is petrified of losing that leftist wing of his party, the far left wing of his party. He's catering to them. He's put them in charge of his campaign, of his administration, and all he knows is he doesn't want to lose. So does this make you fear for terrorists coming into our country with Joe Biden's open borders? And do you want this new Texas law to take effect? Because that one's not decided yet. They're giving at least till Monday for the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to rule officially on that one before it could wend its way up to the Supreme Court. And are you concerned about your kids and how prevalent you think this is with this xylazine mixed with fentanyl? And have your kids heard anything about this drug? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Wanted to get into something else, too. Because you have, I did want to get mention this. I promised to get into this, too. There is the Mississippi Secretary of State sent a letter to Biden, and he's demanding answers on Joe Biden's executive order that is attempting to register illegal aliens and felons to vote in his prisons in Mississippi. So he wrote the letter to Biden. It says, as you are aware, March 7th of 21, Biden issued an executive order which sought to turn the Department of Justice agencies from their historical missions of law enforcement to voter registration and get out the vote operations. These efforts are an intrusion into state matters, misuse of federal revenue and resources. In addition, it appears these efforts have led to agencies under your charge attempting to register people to vote, including ineligible felons, and he also goes on to say illegals. So, there ain't no bounds. The only answer to this is to get the Orange Man back in, since he is the nominee. And he's about to clinch the nominee. I don't know if you've caught that. Tonight he will clinch it. He hasn't yet. Joe Biden clinched the Democrat, which is ridiculously not surprising. I mean, of course he did. He has no real competition. And whoever is trying to compete with him, they won't let him compete or get on the ballot, right? Or at least they fight for that. So everything's rigged today, isn't it? Which is why Orange Man is so appealing. He's not in that game. They're firing, cleaning major house of the Republican National Convention, the RNC, the Republican National Committee. They fired like 60 people today out of that office. They're going to purge it out of all these milquetoast rhinos who accept defeat all the time, the Ronna McDaniels and stuff. She's out, and Trump's daughter-in-law is in, which is great. I think you're going to see a streamlined Trump-esque process that will focus. And they're already saying we're done with this bureaucratic crap. I heard this afternoon on the way in on Fox. They're like, it's about getting the vote out. It's about getting people out in the field and getting the vote out, and that's exactly what it should be. Okay, up next, horror. You're going to hear this audio of a 15-year-old girl beating the living snot out of another 15-year-old girl after school on the way home with like 40 people in a massive fight. But here's the thing. This girl that took this other girl and she bashes her head in the concrete like Trayvon Martin did way back when. And she has both hands on both sides of her skull, and she's smashing her head in full force. And you can hear it. It's horrifying. It's on concrete. It's horrifying. She's attempting to murder her in that video. You can totally see it. And you're going to hear it coming up next. And we're going to talk about what would cause somebody to do this at 15 years of age. And is this another reason not to send your kids to public school? And what you think causes the teen to do something like this. That is coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. Chris Crock Show. Okay. This one is horrifying, and there's a real story behind this, in my opinion. There is. And I want to get into that with you. You may have heard by now this Hazelwood, Missouri case. It's a suburb of St. Louis. When some of the kids, 15-year-olds, at least these two people or three people, 15-year-olds, fighting. And apparently there's some adults that watch this from one of the things I read today. This 15-year-old girl goes up and fights with another girl in the middle of the street and gets her down on the ground. I'm kind of watching it. I'm going to play the audio in a second. Punching her all over the head and the face. And then she takes her and she slams her head into the ground like a rag doll, like 3 or 4 times. The girl, you're going to hear a weird noise in the background. And the girl's voice it sounds like she's singing or going, ee! That's her. She's seizing. She is seizing. Her legs are crossed all of a sudden. And her sweater's up to her bra because it lifted up on the attack, during the attack. And she's literally got both of her arms up with her hands sticking out like a dog or something, you know what I mean, begging for something. And she's saying, yeah! She's seizing. It is the most horrifying, disgusting thing. Nobody stops to administer first aid. They're all beating the hell out of each other. And it's horrifying. And the fact that a 15-year-old girl could do that to another 15-year-old girl is horrifying. And there is some real wickedness and horrible things going on in the way people are not parenting their children that we'll get into in a second. But I'm going to play this for you. And I'll stop it at times maybe to describe what you just heard, rewind it a minute, but here we go.
You're in here!
Okay, did you hear that at the end? It sounds like a bird going, woo, 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 woo. It's her seizing. Those are horrifying noises coming out of her mouth in a seizure. And the head thumping, it's hard to determine what's what, but this is the head thumping. I'll zero in on it here. That doom, doom. That's 2 out of the 3 or 4 hits that she did on her. That's her head. On the concrete. From like 10 feet away, you can hear it. Hold on, I gotta go back a second. That was her head. Thump, thump. And as I rewind the video back to watch this, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I mean, it's hard to watch. I just have trouble. It's that bad. It's on my Twitter feed if you want to see it. And it's terrifying. It's horrifying. It's enraging and terrifying and horrifying and scary as all get out. How could somebody do that to another person, particularly a girl in a high school at 15 years of age, walking through a neighborhood in daylight, 5 minutes from the school they're walking? Couple questions for you. I'll tell you what the Attorney General said today in a statement on this, and give you more details. They left her lying in the road, by the way. Seizing, shirt up, seizing in the middle of the road. The neighbors who saw this, that are explaining this to television and other news outlets, say that some neighbors that talked to them and gave this information had other videos from their cameras in their houses. They don't want to be identified out of fear of retaliation. As they said, adults were present at that fight, and many more people need to be charged. Couple questions for you. I thought about my daughter in this. I thought about my daughter walking from home from school, my beautiful daughter, my precious, beautiful daughter who wouldn't hurt a flea ever. And I thought of her getting assaulted like this because she wouldn't know she's not been raised up on any of this stuff. She would know if she says one wrong thing to these crazed, angry, miserable wokesters, they could beat the living hell out of her in New York second for misinterpreting something that she says. I am horrified at the thought of somebody like my child going to school with somebody like that. And the idea that people have that kind of rage there but don't have it here at 15 years of age is absurd. I guarantee you there are people filled with that rage and that hatred that go to school with your kids. And so my question is this another reason to not send your kids to public school? Hayeswood High School is where this happened, the public school. And I'm not here to go after all the public schools, but is this another reason to not send your kids to public school? And is this another reason to pull your kids from any places where there's too many kids brought up in Gen Pop, if you will, general population, not the prison like they refer to it, but I'm saying the general population out there? If there's too many people from the general public who are raised in homes that are not like yours, that are not well at all, like this one. I'm sure this young lady was from a house that's very unwell. So is this another reason to pull your kids from any places beyond school as well, where there's just too many kids brought up in the general population and don't have the values and the control and, raised with hatred and vengeance? And what do you think causes a teen to do something like this? And should the girl who did this violent assault be charged as an adult? I think this young lady should be charged as an adult, and I think she must be put in jail as a cold-blooded hand. She didn't need a weapon. The weapon were her hands. She's a freaking monster. There's no question. She's a psychopath monster to take a human being's head, presumably sober, right after school, walking home within 5 minutes of the school, and in front of people in open public space, beating her head into the ground like a melon or a coconut. It's horrific. She's a monster. Yes, she should be charged as an adult in my estimation. A number that I want to hear from you on right now is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Is this another reason not to send your kids to public school? Is this another reason to pull your kids from anywhere where there's just too many people that are in the general population out there that you just don't know or trust? Where the parenting is not there or so horrific or broken that these kids are filled with rage and no outlet to get help. And what do you think causes a teen to do something like this? And should she be charged as an adult, this monster? I sure think so. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I want to hear from you right now on this. I'll tell you what I think causes a teen to do something like this. I would be willing to bet a tremendous amount of money that this 15-year-old girl beating the hell out of this other, not even beating the hell out of her, she's trying to murder her, that she does not have a daddy in her house, that mom never had a daddy in her house, that she was produced out of wedlock and feels rage, hatred, and rejection. Why did my dad not stay here with me? Why aren't my parents married? Who is my dad? All sorts of things. And I believe that she's in one of these types of environments. And she feels unloved, uncared for, and feels hatred, self-hatred and rage for being rejected. That's what I believe. That's what I think. And no, I don't think the parents should be charged. I think the girl should be charged as an adult. Somebody said something like, you play a big man's game, you're going to go to a big man's jail, big woman's jail, and she should. Okay, the AG from Missouri, I want to hear from you, by the way, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Look, I don't want to say you should pull your kids from public school. I always offered both of my kids who we homeschooled. She is still homeschooled / going to dual credit college courses, drives herself to school and such. But I always offered them in junior high and high school. We can go to the school over here. We live in a very good school district, and we could go to that. You want to go there and just do a seminar? I would call it do a walkthrough. No, nope. High school, you want to? Nope. We have like the crown jewel of the school district in our zone here where we're at, and they didn't want to, and that's fine too. I mean, they have done exceedingly well. My daughter has an A average in college after about 4 or 5 courses at least. My son transferred with almost 2 years completed. It's a wise thing you do for scholarships. You transfer as a freshman with 56 credits like he did, and you got a lot of scholarships as a freshman. You get more as a freshman than you do as a junior. But it all transferred over too. But all right, so 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I'll get more into the public school thing too as well. All right, we'll take your call on that next. I'll tell you what the Missouri Attorney General said today about all this, and 2 other horrific stories to mention about young people doing just wicked things to folks. All right, that's next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-9227 is our number, 800-288-WBAP. Missouri Attorney General, speaking about the 15-year-old girl who smashed a teen's head into the concrete several times, should be tried as an adult, as the victim is now clinging to her life in the hospital. Can you imagine a 15-year-old girl beating your head into another girl's head into the concrete so hard that she kills her? Do you understand how bad this is? She is a monster. I mean, how could any? I mean, certainly it's not behavior of a woman, but this is something some crazed lunatic man would do. Attorney General of Missouri, where this happened in Hazelwood, Andrew Bailey, announced, "This is evil and complete disregard for human life has no. This evil and complete disregard for human life has no place in Missouri or anywhere. I'm praying for the victim. This criminal should be charged as tried as an adult. If the victim dies, that offense should rise to homicide." Absolutely. I mean, she looks like she's trying to murder her. I mean, there's no question. You don't need to worry about motive and intent. She's beating the hell out of her and bashing her head into the concrete. Police found the girl suffering from a serious head injury near the intersection of blank and blank, the side streets, roughly a 5-minute walk from the high school campus. The teen, whose name has not been released, was taken to the hospital, remains in critical condition. It's been like 2 or 3 days now, at least. She was the 15-year-old girl who's accused of the assault. Well, we all watched it. Was arrested Saturday and charged with assault. As of Sunday afternoon, she remained in custody. So it's been like 4 or 5 days now. St. Louis County Police Department investigating, and the district did its obligatory releasing of a statement. But I would really take stock of the school your child goes to. This is another reason why I very much support school choice and vouchers. And Governor Abbott did a great job of tossing most of the people out that he needs to win school vouchers. And ironically, or sadly, whatever, I guess, it's rural Republicans who are selling us out on that. But guess what? If you trace the money back, as I've mentioned to you before and seen, it is the teachers' unions. You're not going to believe it. It is the big Texas teachers' unions that are giving massive donations to these Republicans in rural Texas to stop this from going into effect. The teachers' unions, leftist, Marxist, woke teachers' unions, are literally funneling money into Republican rural Texans to get them to be against vouchers and such. And I just saw an article in the Journal today or yesterday talking about how rural schools, many in the rural communities, are doing school choice and are enjoying it and wanting it, and they like it. Now, 2 other cases I wanted to share with you that are horrifying and show that in many cases people are raising monsters. To add to the horrifying attempted murder that I saw, and I told you about in Hazelwood outside of St. Louis, there's a couple other cases that have just popped across my screen as well in the last day or two that are just unthinkable. One is in Chicago. A 15-year-old girl was gang raped on Facebook Live. I mean, there are animals being raised by people, not being raised, animals being spawned. None of the roughly 40 people who watched this video of a gang rape of a 15-year-old girl called police about the attack. Investigators say second time in months that Chicago police have investigated an apparent attack streamed live on Facebook. WGN TV has one of their officials saying, "Here's what's even more disturbing. More than the fact that they did this, there were so many people that saw it and didn't pick up the phone to dial 911." The girl was reported missing after she didn't return to her home after going to the store Sunday. The girl's uncle reportedly came across a Facebook Live showing her sweet niece being gang raped by 15-year-old boys. She's 15. A group of boys raping her. The girl was found Tuesday morning walking 4 blocks from her home. Police say she appears in good condition and was returned home. I mean, and then another case here. You probably saw this. It wasn't huge news, but it's just typical Wild Kingdom stuff here. Massive brawls break out inside of Six Flags over Georgia, with 500 to 600 people involved before a gunfight erupts. 15-year-old boy shot by police officer in self-defense. Could you imagine going, like I did for years, at Six Flags here in Texas, up until as recently as a year or two ago with my kids? Can you imagine being there with your 3 and 5-year-old, or your 6 and 8-year-old, or your 8 and 12-year-old or something, and there's gangland beatdowns, 500, 600 people, and there's shots fired? What in God's name is happening? I mean, these are all good future Biden voters. I will tell you that. They are. Good, useful idiots who Joe can command and his friends in the Democrat Party can command to sick on us and have a mostly peaceful protest, terrorizing us, beating us. And, I mean, none of this is going in the right way, unfortunately. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next on the Chris Crock Show, I don't know if you've heard about this. It's been on the news today and such, but we have a story that I think the New York Times was that put this story out. Ford and GM and some other manufacturers are literally, they have software of some sort that is in your brand new car. There's actually at least 4 automakers they're mentioning in here that do this. Ready? You buy the car, you check off on everything. You're not going to sit there and read a 5-page, 10-page thing that, the fine print. And in there is giving them permission to sell your driving habits, to monitor them and sell them. And they're doing that now to insurance companies. So without your knowledge, these major auto manufacturers are putting gear and software in there to report it, and they're selling your driving habits to insurance companies. Wow. We'll get to that coming up next and much more on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.